In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to handle herbicide applications when they're not applied to a production block, so for areas such as headlands or beside tracks or whatever. So let's go from main menu into enter data, into spray diary. In the previous tutorial on applying herbicides, I used this record and we'll continue on from there. What often happens in a situation like this is we were going to use around about 3.5 tanks, 3.68 tanks to do this job. Now, often an operator will say, rather than do 0.68 of a tank at the end, I will fill the last tank right up, and when I finish spraying the blocks, whatever's left, I'll use it to apply to some weeds in another area of the property, which is not a production block. What we don't want to do is apply those chemicals to a production block, because that's not where it belongs. We don't want to ignore the fact that it happened, because there is chemical being used and it will adversely affect the accuracy of our inventory. So we do need to account for the fact that it's taken place, but we don't want to put it onto a production block. So what we do instead is we create an area or another block where we can put these sort of costs. There are a few other costs other than herbicide that can also be applied to a non-production block. So what we're going to do is create a headlands block. Now, to do this, we'll go out of this screen into setup menu, and I'll take you into the blocks first. Block screen requires a variety to be shown. If we don't have a variety, the block can't be set up. We don't want to allocate these costs unfairly to any particular variety, so what we need to do first is we'll go into crops and we'll create a crop called headlands, which we've done there already. The crop is headlands. We also then need to create a variety called headlands, which we have done, and that headland variety is linked to the crop called headlands. Once we've done that, we can move ahead and create a block called headlands. So we'll go into the block screen, and this has already been done. If I just scroll down, we have a block called avocado headlands. When you go in there, you can see that I have selected headlands as the variety. In terms of area, we're not trying to replicate how many hectares of headlands we've actually got. All we're trying to do is create an area within the program where we can dump costs and allocate chemicals. So for simplicity, I don't want to change the production area of my property to any great degree, so I'm going to make this block just a 1 round hectare. And the way to do that is to choose a row plant spacing. In this case, I've just grabbed the one at the top because it doesn't really matter which one we grab. That particular spacing is 204 trees to the hectare. So all I then do is put in 204 trees in this box, which gives us our 1 hectare. Let's now go back into the spray diary and we will show you how to actually allocate this cost. As I said, we'll carry on from the previous record where we go to spray the avocado blocks. It would take 3.68 tanks to do that, and the balance of that last 4th tank would be used on the headlands. The simplest way to do this is to leave this record intact, go to a new record and just create the allocation of that last bit of chemical onto the headlands block. And the simplest way to do that is to use the copy paste function. If I click on this button, it gives me a number of options. One is to copy the entire record, including the blocks, which I don't want to do, but I do want to copy the chemical mix and exclude the blocks, so I'll select that option. Just incidentally, while we're here, this option in copy paste also allows you to create permanent recipes. So if you've got a fairly complex tank mix which you use fairly regularly, you may find it easy to create a recipe for that tank mix and just give it a name, and you can always go back and grab it as a one grab rather than having to grab 3 or 4 or 5 chemicals and put back into the record. So we'll click on copy chemical mix only. It gives me a message saying that a new record has been created, which is record 497. Click OK, and it takes me straight to that record. We're now in record 497. There's our roundup at 1 hectare, 1 litre per hectare. This time when we select blocks, I'm just going to select the headlands block. I'm going to put in the rate of 100 litres per hectare and apply it. Now, remembering that the program thinks this block is a 1 hectare area, and so at 100 litres it's calculated that we would use 0.59 of a tank if we really were spraying a 1 hectare area, but we weren't doing that. We actually had 0.32 of a tank left over from after we'd sprayed the blocks. So what we need to do here is just double click on the Headlands block, change the quantity of vats used to 0.32 because that's what was left after we'd finished with spraying the blocks. We apply that, and now we have an accurate record of the amount of chemical that's been applied. We haven't applied that chemical unfairly to a production block or a variety. We've kept it completely separate. The only thing you'll notice that has changed and is not quite accurate is the litres per hectare, because the program is calculating that we sprayed a 1 hectare area and we used 0.32 of a tank. It's saying we must have been running at a calibrated rate of 54 litres per hectare. But given that we've got all the other information correct, the fact that we're slightly out on our rate per hectare is really not a great issue. No auditor is going to be particularly concerned about that application, given that it's been put onto a headland or a non-production area. So that's the quickest and easiest way to allocate non-production type costs, such as herbicide applications. Create a spare block and put your costs on there. And there may be some other costs in other areas where the headland comes in handy so that it's not adversely skewing the numbers on a particular block or a particular variety.